We will proceed with this third breakout session of the day, Building a Culture of Evaluation. It will be a look at how a library in a town of 5,000 uses data to inform, bringing in new programs, new services, and using tools to solicit patron feedback. Andrew Hopman is the director of the Clarinda Public Library. He's here to explain using OPAC search terms for collection development. He'll tell us about using email segments for targeted marketing, and he'll tell us about a feedback process to continually improve their collection of things. So, Andrew no doubt looks familiar to you because he's a go-to speaker for us at the State Library. He has been the director at the Clarinda Public Library since 2008. And during that time, he has seen some very positive community and government relations within the library. He's seen an increase in funding, an expansion of services, and he's even gone through a few building projects. He hails from Dubuque, which is very near my own hometown in Platteville, Wisconsin, so I know Dubuque very well. Andrew worked there at the Dubuque Public Library part-time. He's also volunteered at the Loras College and the University of Dubuque Libraries. So here to tell us more about his culture of learning, Andrew Hopman. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you, Amanda. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk again once at ILOC. I really enjoy being able to visit and share all the crazy things and ideas I have with others, and I hope that maybe you get inspired a little bit to go out of your comfort zone and try a few things as well. I've really enjoyed the other sessions today I've been able to attend, and I even will probably touch on some of the things that some of the other presenters talked about and some of the other programs and services. So it's kind of nice I get to go last because then we can tie into some of the things that you may have already learned about or heard about earlier in today. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so we're going to be really, like I said, I called my program Building a Culture of Evaluation. But before we get too much into that, I kind of want to say, what does that mean to me? Because I can't remember if I picked that title or Bonnie picked that title for me. But a culture of evaluation to me means how can we as library staff or the library board understand how people are using our library, but also that impact those outcomes that we're seeing. The culture is an ongoing, never-ending process. It's always happening. We always need to be thinking about it. But this also allows us to build support from the public and the staff to be engaged with it, that they're looking forward to or they understand that we need to ask feedback. We need to ask these questions so we can continually develop that culture, develop that process. It also helps guide decision making. That's already been talked a lot about today in some of the other sessions of, when you're looking at maybe talking to stakeholders or you're writing a grant. When you're evaluating what you're doing all the time, it makes it a lot easier to make those decisions, to write those grants, to talk to those stakeholders. But it also helps tell the library story. When you're doing your annual report or you're just trying to to make that inspiring Facebook post to really, let the community know what you're doing. But first, just a little more about me. Like Bonnie said, I've been here since 2008 in Clarinda as the library director, but I've worked at a couple other different libraries and even Parks Library as well. I'm really into technology and the community. And you'll kind of see as I talk about some of my solutions, I'll be looking at, utilizing technology, spreadsheets, reports that hopefully can guide our decision making when we evaluate what we're doing. Um, I'm involved in probably too many community initiatives and partnerships like most small town library directors are, but that also helps us understand where the role the library is playing within the community. I love to bike and tennis and play pickleball, And I'm a really big nonfiction reader, so it's really hard when our circulation librarian asked me to lead book club because I generally pick books that the regular book club attendees don't like, but they always get a kick out of it, as do I. I do want to put our community in perspective a little bit. Our service population is about 7,500. Um, that puts us as an E-size library, but to be honest, I think our population for Clarinda is just over 5,000. So we're a really small E library and could be a D library, depending how the next census goes. For 2024, we saw about 40,000 people visit the library, and our circulation was about 70,000. I've always been a big proponent of programming and events, so you can see we've had almost 10,000 people attend our different library programs we've offered. Our budget is about $400,000 a year, but we do that with only two full-time staff, myself and our youth services librarian, and then we have six part-time staff. So our full-time equivalent is about 4.2. So I promise you what I'll be talking about and sharing is kind of how can you do some of these things that are pretty easy and effective and efficient with your time because you're ordering books, you're cataloging books, you're running programs, you're fixing the plumbing, all the things that go along with being a library director. A little bit about our community then, like I said, our population is 5,300. Average population age is about 40. We're like most small town, rural Iowa communities when it comes to demographics and income, I feel. So I think this program will be really applicable to a lot of libraries across Iowa. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about collection development, email marketing, and then kind of our survey feedback loops that we use, especially for our library of things. If you have attended a program or taken one of my classes before, you know I can rant and I get off topic, but I promise you I'll get back on topic, and you'll get something out of that rant most likely too. So, but we'll start off with collection development. Obviously, when we are looking at adding to our collections, you know, I always want to remind you, look at your collection development policy. That should be kind of your guiding document. But also, you know, here in Clarinda, I always look at what's trending titles. We subscribe to the book page publication. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the New York Times and Amazon bestseller list, or even Baker and Taylor's best-selling list that they have. There's book talks we look at. Of course, we're monitoring what's on Goodreads and Amazon's, what our vendors, like I said, Baker and Taylor, Ingram are sending us. And I'll even log in and look and see what is really busy in our Libby and Hoopla apps to see what have a lot of reserves or holds or things like that when we're looking at collection development, what books to buy for our next cycle. Of course, I'm kind of periodically checking our reserve list and our usage list. So I'll pull up in our ILS, our library system, and to see what's really popular, what's got a lot of reserves on it, to see if we need extra copies or do we have other books by that author too. But one of the things I was surprised that our library system offers is a feature called OPAC search terms. We currently use Book Systems Atrium's product. And this is a feature, but I imagine it's in other ILSs as well, or if not, it's something you could probably ask them for. I was kind of surprised and when I discovered this because I didn't know it was there. And I found myself kind of every time I'm doing a book order, I'm going in here just to see what's going on, what's being used. So to me, the OPAC search terms, we can, you know, evaluate our collection two ways. We can do it with collection development. So what are people looking for? And on the right-hand side of the screen, you can kind of see the top graphic just kind of tells them how many search terms have been put into our OPAC or our card catalog. And then the lower portion is actually kind of what they've been searching for. So it kind of tallies the counts as best as it can. So you can see, obviously, with my little graphic here, equipment and hotspots are the most popular item that people are searching for to see if there's one available or to reserve one. But then you go down and look, oh, well, here is The Woman by Kristen Hanna. So, how many copies of that do we have? Do we have other books by her? What books are similar to the woman that we might want to add because that's what everyone's looking for. Um, so with that, like I said, I use this for collection development, but also it's kind of neat to look at how people are searching, and that's kind of where you can use this for, how you do your cataloging? How are things listed in your OPAC? Are people able to find it when they're searching for it? So OPAC search terms I think are really neat. Like I said, just about every time I'm going in to order some books or items, I pull this up and just kind of see what's trending here at our library with OPAC search terms. So again, we use Atrium Book Systems. Your own ILS hopefully has this feature, or I would suggest you maybe reach out to ask them about that. We're going to change gears a little bit and talk about email marketing. And this is probably what I have. This and the next topic I'll spend quite some time on is email marketing. And I it might have been another ILOC conference or another program from the state library that I was on. And I was really concerned or puzzled when they said, well, 20% of your total budget could be and should be spent on marketing. And yeah, right. We're not going to do that here in Clorinda. But the more I thought about it, when you look at where you invest your resources, staff, uh, budgets for books, programming, I mean, that takes a lot of work and can take a lot of money. That how are you going to make sure that the community is aware of it and able to use it? We probably should be spending more money on marketing than we have been. We used to not have a budget for marketing. Then I got it up to $500 and I thought that was doing pretty good. But now, that's definitely not 20% of our budget. So it's a matter of how can we further, we want to make sure we're reaching our audience, our patrons, our community, and marketing is a good way to do it. To me, email marketing is one of the easier ways to get increased awareness and community engagement. We use it to promote specific services or events or programs. And here in Clarinda, we've also used it to combat declining usage or programs. So if we notice that a database might not be getting used as often when you look at your WHOFI statistics, we may send out an email to our patrons that say, hey, are you aware that we offer Educate Station? And here's what it is, and here's the link to log in, and here's how you log in. And then we can kind of look at how many people looked at that email, clicked on it, but then also how many people have actually logged into that database and maybe used it. So I'll talk a lot about some of the things we do specifically here in Clarinda, but I've hopefully have tried to make it so that you can apply this to your own library. So specifically here in Clarinda, we use an email service called MailerLite. We also have in the past used Constant Contact and Tiny Letter and a good number of them. MailerLite kind of checked all the boxes for us here, with the first box being how expensive was it. So it was the most affordable one that would let us send out the number of emails that we wanted to per month. We do send out about 1 to 5 emails a month. And what's really important, I have found in my years of sending out emails and looking at reports from all those different services, is we really make use of our groups and segments. And one thing that also has changed and over the years that we've been sending out emails is when you're developing and crafting your email, always remember that most people are going to be looking at that email on a smartphone. A lot of the new email providers will let you kind of preview what it looks like on a smartphone, but even then, less is more when it comes to someone browsing on a device. So here's just some examples of some of the information that we get when we're looking at and evaluating our email marketing here in Clarinda. And I know this is very similar to what you get in MailerLite or, excuse me, Constant Contact as well. So you can see here we have some different campaigns, they call them. These are emails that we sent out, and you can see who we've sent them out to, how many people opened those up, and then how many people actually clicked on something within that email. What's kind of nice is if you dial into this report, you can actually see what they clicked on. and even what type of browser they were in. And that's where you can definitely see that everyone's using a mobile device when they're looking at your emails. Um, but then you can also look at the open rates, and we do vary some of our designs depending on how creative and how much time I have. And that does kind of, I do go back and look at that to say, okay, well, is this a better design to send out our emails in? Um, and it's trial and error a lot with me. I do occasionally kind of try to see what's trending, and if I get an email from a company or another library, I definitely kind of look at that and say, okay, I like what they did here, and kind of make some notes of that. But what I kind of wanted to say, what's really been a game changer for us, is the use of what MailerLite calls segments and groups. So Um, the way that they have it set up is segments are automatic list. We really don't use that here, but you can kind of set up the system to automate a little bit that people will get put automatically into a certain group or a certain segment. Um, Groups are more static, and you have to kind of manually put someone in there. But here we have a couple different groups, our gaming group, our trivia, crafting, and culinary club. And you can see there's smaller numbers in our total email list, which is about, I think, 1,400 or so. But what you'll notice is that open rate is twice or greater than when we blanket email everyone a generic monthly newsletter. And this is because we are able to specifically target people who have expressed an interest in our culinary club, and they're going to open that email and they're going to be engaged with that content, and then hopefully either attend that program, uh, take that survey, or give us that feedback that we're looking for. And one of the nice things about doing it this way then is because people are happy, hopefully, to get our emails. You don't see as many people unsubscribing because if I bombarded everybody about our upcoming culinary club, there's a good number of people who aren't interested in that. That's not to say when we send out our generic monthly email, it does talk about culinary club and reference it. Um, and I'll talk a little bit about how do we get people into these groups. Um, but first, I wanted to, when you think of what groups do we have, how should we create them? Um, think about how you're going to market it. What programs do you offer? When do you find yourself wanting to reach out to a certain group? And we have our Friends of the Library group. We have a book club, like I've mentioned, our trivia, crafting, and cooking. One thing we haven't done here in Clorinda was age groups. So I can't really send out a message just to our adult or teen or children's kind of accounts. I kind of wish I would have done that because it does kind of make it easier if you want to promote a new story time or summer reading program. Um, but people also move from account from age group to age group, and that's one that we didn't set it up when we imported all of our 1,400 emails, so it wasn't there. But it's something, if there's time for questions, I'd love to hear from libraries who maybe do a little bit more of that age grouping, and if they see a good response with their library and marketing and email opens. But how do we get those emails and how do we get them added to the groups? Um, we're doing all this great technology with MailerLite and Constant Contact in the past that, it works pretty well to pass a clipboard around. And I keep one in our programming room that has a pin attached to it. And it has a please print your name and print your email. And we'll pass that around. And it's a generic form, so we can use it for story time if we want it to. We can use it for summer programming. We can use it for a culinary club. We can use it for just about any event. It just says, hey, if you want to get our newsletter, sign up. So what we do is we pass that around. I used to only say, hey, if you want to get our newsletter after the program, come up here and sign up. Well, no one ever did that. I've learned that if you give it to that first person and say, put your name and email down, you'll get a lot of people who sign up for your email a million times, but guess what? You at least have their email and you can contact them. So then at the end of the program, what we do is I'll take that into my office, and either I or one of my staff members will go in and enter those emails. And then when we enter them, we can tag them. Okay, they were at our culinary club on Monday was about freeze drying candies and other homemade goods. So guess what? Anyone who signed up is going to not only get our regular standard email newsletter, they're going to now be added to that group for our cooking or culinary, because then we can remind them about the next event. And that's worked really well. Um, if you guys use an online registration system, I think we use Library Calendar by Library Market here, but HooFi has this feature as well. If people are registering online through your system for an event, well, you can go in and you can scrape those emails and then you can add them to your group that you've created or your segment. Like I've mentioned a little earlier, it's really helped us with programs that are either new or have low attendance because we can, for example, we do our crafting programs and we generally, because we have a set number of kits and activities that we can do or we want to create, we like to get people to sign up so we know how many are coming. And because of that, we'll look at it and sometimes there's a couple days beforehand, and it's like, oh, only 5 people have signed up. Um, why don't we send out a reminder email to all of our crafting people and we'll see generally registrations increase or attendance increase when we do that compared to when we don't. Like I said, just like looking at how people interact and evaluating how they're using your OPAC, I do not every time go back and look at the statistics to every email, but when I'm in there and I'm feeling like I have a little more time rather than to fire out an event reminder email or something like that, I do try to look at the design. Are there any designs or any aspects of our newsletter that people really like, that they're clicking on, that they're engaging with? One thing that surprised me was we did away with our PDF printable calendar on our newsletter, and you could see right away that that's where all the clicks were going, and actually we got vocal feedback about that too, that people wanted to get our email and then print the calendar off, where when we tried to redirect them to our online calendar, well, no, they want to print it off and have it on the refrigerator. So we added that back. Um, but that's where you can always look at, where people are designing or clicking. With your design, you can move things up and down. I'm always kind of experimenting a little bit. If you get really creative, I know with MailerLite and Constant Contact, you can even make different emails. So you send the same content, but you do a little A/B design testing, so you can really dial in, what's working, what's engaging your patrons. I don't have enough time to practically design one email, and I'm not going to design two. But if I did have more time, I know I'd be doing that because again, we spend so much energy getting ready for these programs, planning these programs, even doing our collection development with having great collections of books that, I want to make sure people are aware of it and they can engage with it. My staff would probably not like me, but there's times where I want to send them out there with a sandwich board on the corner of the intersection here by the library and just wave their hands so people can know what we're doing and come into the library. Um, but there are some challenges with email marketing. I would wish it was, 100% open rate every time. Some of the challenges I see with emails is they're only going to those that you've already interacted with. So, there's we have what did I say, about 1,400 emails in our MailerLite program, and we have a population of 5,600 and a service population of 7,500. So we're still missing those that we haven't interacted with. So some ideas is, can you maybe get your chamber or your city to send out a, hey, are you getting our newsletter from the library? If not, click here to sign up. Um, we do post our newsletter to our website and our Facebook and even nextdoor.com, because with MailerLite and Constant Contact, you can get a link that will render your newsletter as a page. And another challenge that I have is when to update templates. I do look at them, but again, it's just a matter of timing. Do you have time that you want to make a new template? And that can be challenging because I like to change things up probably too often than my schedule allows. And plus, if you have something that works, it's probably easiest just to stick with it as well. So let's see here. I think we're doing pretty good on time. So I'll spend kind of the last part of my program here talking about the library of things and our feedback loop and what we do with that. And then hopefully there's some time for questions. Like I said, I'm always interested, and every time I've presented, I always get some great information from the participants when you do have a little Q&A as well. Um, Here in Clarinda, we started kind of our library of things back in 2018. It originally started with board games, but then we've added equipment and technology, yard games, and obviously, if you remember from our OPAC search terms, those hotspots that people are always looking for. Um, to me, it's important that we kind of are evaluating and looking at what we're doing with our library of things. That equipment can be expensive. Um, if you have board games and you count those items, that can be expensive for staff time and time consuming. Um, and then, especially with our library of things, but even with our collection of books, I'm one that I would rather see the items in use than sitting on the shelf at the library not being used because they're not doing anyone good if they're not in the hands of someone, in my opinion. So we've kind of developed a way that we can get some feedback. Um, you know, I'm always interested, of course, what are people using? And we still look at your traditional checkouts, and that can be done with with your ILS, item usage reports. But your ILS isn't going to tell you how people are using those items when they do take them home. Are they using them specifically in the home? Are they using them for their business? Are they using them for educational purposes? But then also, we kind of want to know, well, if we are investing this time and energy developing this library of things, what other items do they want? Because sometimes it's kind of a shot in the dark. And if any of you have had a library of things, you probably have gotten some things you think people would use all the time and no one's used it. Um, and other things that you're like, well, I'll add this, and then it's just super popular. I'm really surprised. Right now, we just got a new item, and it's been on reserve since we've had it. We got a ghost hunting kit, and um, I think Florinda must be a very haunted place because it's been checked out and on reserve since we've gotten it. But anyways, we can help get a better understanding of what people are looking for when they're coming to the library to borrow a thing. And one thing I'll point out here is if you do see in your ILS that you have low usage of maybe that ghost hunting kit, well, that would be a perfect opportunity to maybe send out an email newsletter to someone who's attended a paranormal program in the past or something like that. Um, and then finally, the library of things, I've looked at it with this feedback, with this information. Are there any ways that we can tell a story? Because a lot of people, will still wonder, well, the library is still just books. Why are you loaning out hotspots? Why are you loaning out board games? Um, why are you loaning out yard games? Like, why is the library got to do that? Um, and if we get this information, this feedback, we hopefully are able to tell a story then. And I'll have to say the pictures in the background, that prior picture was all of our board games. It actually looked pretty organized in that photo before I took it. This next picture is our back room where we store more of our expensive things or things we don't just want sitting out in the stacks. And we actually had most of the stuff in stock when I took this photo. But what we do here to get that feedback is we send out a survey once a month to everyone who's checked out a piece of equipment. It took me some digging and a challenge, and this is something I've been begging my ILS to do automatically, but you can, right now I kind of have to manually do it. I have a saved report, but I run a report of anyone who's checked out what we classify as equipment from our library, and then I get those patron accounts. And if they have an email, then I send them a formed email from our ILS that says, hey, actually, I have an example of that, so I'll show that here to you shortly. But we send that to them, and it links to a website for our survey. And we use Question Pro. It's very similar if any of you have used SurveyMonkey, but Question Pro is pretty affordable or free. I can't remember. We've had it for a couple years from TechSoup stock. So that's kind of why we went in. Again, trying to stretch those budget dollars as far as we can go. But I've been very happy with Question Pro. That and with SurveyMonkey, you can do responsive surveys. So depending on what they answer, they'll either see more questions or fewer questions, and that helps kind of make it efficient. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. Okay. So here, this is kind of an example of what we send out. The email, our records indicate that sometime in the past 30 days, you checked out a piece of equipment or a Wi-Fi hotspot from the library. We'd like to have your feedback about the use of the equipment so we can continue to improve the services and pieces of technology we offer our community. Your responses are confidential unless you request we contact you, and you can submit your feedback here, and that takes them to that Question Pro survey. This is also important because we did at a time receive some federal funding for our hotspots. So this just helped with that reporting when we were getting that funding as well. But here, this is actually some of the information that we are getting now from those surveys when we send it through our Question Pro. Again, Question Pro is like any other survey platform out there. It will actually compile and generate and analyze that data for you. So you don't have to sit there and add up everything. It does these wonderful pie charts and things like that. So you can see here, I can say 91.94% of people using our library of things are very satisfied with it. And then here, when it says, please share with us how you benefited from the use of our equipment, I don't have internet, so it allows me to connect for work and pleasure. We used it for a school gathering for entertainment purposes. We used it for a dementia-friendly presentation. We had fun playing mini golf because we rent out little putters and golf balls for our little miniature golf course we have here in town. So we're getting that feedback. And one of the things, I do have a sample of my survey attached to my slides, which should be on the ILOC website. If you also quickly jot down that survey link, it will take you to there as well up at the top. But one of the great things we can do is we get that feedback. And one of the responses we got was for our Wi-Fi hotspots that a patron in their survey said, I was able to apply for a job and I got the job. I mean, that was, that's a snippet that we all want to get, but you got to hear it. And it was written down. Someone wrote that for me. So we were able to make a wonderful little Facebook post about that and share that and really help continue to tell our story, that qualitative data, that qualitative metric about really what the library is doing, why it's important to have hotspots. So, of course, we shared this little tidbit with our library foundation, which has funded our hotspots in the past. So it's just kind of neat that this just, kind of naturally occurs and we get this feedback as we send out that survey. One of the other things we look at with our library of things is, can we add items that we don't have? I do want to put a caveat that the way, one of the things we kind of look at is I try to add items that other places in our community don't have. If someone wanted us to have a lawnmower, we have a rental place that rents those out. So I generally don't try to too much compete with those places in town. However, as a library, we want to think about access. And just because a rental place has it, that doesn't mean someone can always afford to rent it either. But we've also talked with our local rental places about, well, if someone presents a library card, could they get a discount or could we do things like that to make sure that everyone has access to the tools and the resources that they need to keep their yard looking nice if that's a priority of the cities, right? But another example is over here, you can see people want night vision. They want more outdoor sporting and gaming equipment. And then I've heard other libraries carry cake pans to be used. And that was one that we actually, the patron didn't leave their contact information there. But when we get feedback like that, well, sometimes we can maybe promote on our page that we don't have cake pans here, but our neighboring library, they do have cake pans. And they're just a 15-minute drive away that rather than duplicating services again, maybe we can work to share those services and promote what they offer, and they can hopefully promote what we offer. So those are some of the things that you can kind of gather when you start asking these questions. Let's see here. Um, Also, another thing when you're asking these questions and getting this evaluation data is grants and funding. I mean, this is all taken from those surveys that we just send out once a month that I can say, hey, 62.5% of our hotspot users reported having no internet at home. Over half of them use our hotspots for work to school. And then from our quantitative data, 427 hotspot checkouts this last year, and we have an average wait list of 6 to 10 people waiting to get a hotspot. So if I needed to approach someone for more funding or justify the need for more hotspots, I have this data already here. So I think I'm doing pretty good on time here, but we're kind of wrapping up. So I want to talk a little bit about notes and future plans of as we build this culture of evaluation here in Clorinda. One of the things I had mentioned, more and more people are using their smartphones to view our email newsletters. Is how can we utilize texting as a way rather than sending out that email to text that survey? Um, I'd love to do more with automations, both with our email marketing and our ILS. Right now, we manually do this, and I've been really working with our ILS to do this. Is it would be great when you enter a new patron in your ILS that the system automatically sent a form welcome letter saying, "Hey, welcome to the library. Here's your card number. Your PIN number is this. If you want to log into your databases, do this." Here's a link to our Facebook page, follow us. We have to do that manually, but we do that every day because I feel that's really important that we welcome them to the community, to the library as soon as they engage with us. And do that the same with the feedback forms. It would be great if I could tell our ILS every time someone checks out a piece of equipment and they return it to send out that survey. Or do it every third time or something like that. Because I know there are some of our heavy hotspot users that have gotten that equipment feedback list probably, every month for the last, 2 years. But they choose to delete it or they choose to fill it out. But it would be nice if we could even do that automatically with some of our other um, items. Even just look if you wanted to take a collection of your physical audio books, for example, that we're evaluating here in Clorinda, and any user who uses a physical audiobook, send them a survey. Are they aware of downloadable? Do they have access to the internet? Do they have a smartphone? And that would help us make those decisions uh, to expand or add different digital services or what to do with our physical collection. It would be great if we could kind of set those up automatically. I will say with a lot of those, a lot of my questions that I have gotten for our equipment survey and even our program feedback survey were from Project Outcome. And there was a session on that earlier, and I know it was mentioned in a couple other programs. So that was a great way that we got some of our questions that we ask um, for our feedback. And it makes it really easy to tell that story that's going on here at the library when people are using your services. This is a new program that I hope to kind of do the same thing we're doing with our Library of Things feedback. And we're starting a service called Bespoke Books, custom reading recommendations. So essentially, a patron will interact with the library, and we're going to kind of send them a custom email reading list. Um, and then the big thing is when they get that list, we hope they interact with some of the materials and the resources we send them. But then we want to be able to, are we sending them things they like? What didn't they like? So we can continually evolve and better that process. So we've only had one person submit something so far to it. So, and they haven't submitted any feedback yet to the recommendations I sent them. So, of course, just like any good librarian, you're like, oh, did they like them? Did they not like them? So you really want that feedback. But now we're explicitly asking for it, which is something that we haven't always done here at Clorinda, and I think in most libraries. But then you look at many other businesses and organizations, they are constantly asking how they did, what can they do better, and I think we need to do that as well. So these are some fun things that I got distracted with when I was putting my presentation together. There are some paid services that do many of these kind of things, like Patron Point and Orange Boy. They're too expensive for our library, but if you use them or are interested in them, please, send me an email. I'd love to know what they're doing and working for your community. And this was fun. Google Trends. Sadly, they don't necessarily narrow it down to the city of Clarinda, but you can search, and they have a category for books and literature, so you can see what is trending, kind of like my OPAC search results, but Google statewide. So I fell down that rabbit hole of searching Google Trends for a while when I was putting the slide together. So just a few ending notes here. It's hard to have generic surveys and make them useful for several different programs and services, but that's where having open-ended questions can help. Because I don't want to have 12 different surveys I got to manage. I like to get everything in one pot and then extrapolate that data. But it's hard to do when you're asking a crafting program versus an author visit. But if you do open-ended questions, you can kind of do that. And that's where project outcome comes in really handy. Another challenge is how do we get engagement and feedback from our non-users? We don't have their emails, they're not coming to our programs. How can we see what they want for our library of things if we're not interacting with them? Um, Email isn't the only tool. Like I said, texting is coming up there. And what do you do when you're blocked and spammed? You know, you just that's a good one. I don't know either, but hopefully you don't get blocked too much. And if you guys have questions, I don't know if there's time now, but I do appreciate the time, and I'll be quiet.
We do have a couple questions that came through, and one is from Sabrina, who just wants to clarify, how do people know about all the things that are in your library of things that they can check out? You mentioned they can find your hotspots through your catalog, so you must catalog all this stuff?
Yep. So with our library of things, everything's cataloged because it can get checked out. Um, what we've done is, there actually was a comment in that feedback of, I don't know what's in your library of things. You need to do specific Facebook posts. So periodically we'll do, especially in the summer, our yard games are popular. So we'll do a Facebook post that says, hey, did you know you can get yard games from the library? Our OPAC also allows us to create custom widgets that display on our OPAC page. And at the very top of ours is yard games, because that was one question we were getting all the time. Well, what yard games do you have? What yard games do you have? Um, so that's where we have it listed. It's also really cool if every so often we'll do kind of a library things expo. So we'll set up our room and market it. Hey, come look at all the stuff we have, and you can come and you can play with the microscope, the telescope, and just kind of get the hands-on with it to see what we have. It's also really good if you have an area where you can set it up when people walk in, because they're just going to be like, why is there cornhole set up in the middle of the library? Oh, well, you can borrow that. Oh, I didn't know that. What else can you borrow? All these other great things. Um,
That is so cool. That is so cool. Um, Lexi wants to know more about your ghost hunting kit, and I have to admit I do too.
so the ghost hunting kit was one that you can buy on Amazon. It's a little pricey if you buy their kit. You can also kind of piecemeal it yourself and save some money. Um, you know, I have my own personal thoughts on the legitimacy of the ghost hunting kits, but they have little sensors that go off when random things happen, like movement. And there's also an electromagnetic sensor that will trigger. There's a old FM radio. Well, it's not old, but it's a very cheap FM radio that is bound to pick up random static and phone calls and things like that. So you can set all of that up, and I'm surprised that people are engaging with it and using it, because one thing it didn't come with was kind of a booklet on how to use it. So we were waiting on, do we need to buy a book that says, ghost hunting for dummies or something like that to include in the kit? But so far, no one's been like, oh, I don't know how to use that. But if you've watched any paranormal investigation shows, they're often using this equipment. So you probably have already had some experience of how to use it. Um,
I
so like I
like
said, that
those.
one surprised me.
I like those shows on TV. Ghost Hunters, is that still on?
I don't know if it is, but
That,
there's still people that are interested in it.
yeah,
So
that was fun. Um, who is it? I think Anne wondered if you had suggestions for how to reach those non-library users that don't have cards, they don't have accounts, all to help convince them that the library has so much to offer. That's hard to reach non-users, yeah.
yeah, like I said, we have worked with our chamber in our city. They have different mail lists. So if they're willing to share an email out to their users or their accounts, or even on their social media to say, hey, sign up for the library's newsletter here. Um, I've also even thought about, you know, we have in the past like promoted post on social media, so then that will go outside of your audience when you pay for it. But there's a cost with that, and as we look at how many users are still actively on Facebook, with marketing, that's the challenge that I'm constantly faced with is we're always preaching to the choir about how great we are and what we're doing. And
Yes.
apart from having my staff on that corner with that sandwich board, saying, "Hey, check out what we have," um, you know, that's a really good challenge. And the only thing I will say is try to get out there. And when you do go out into the community and talk with other groups, bring that clipboard. And if you're talking to Qantas, get their emails. Um, and then add them to your email list, and tell them, hey, if you see something you really like about the library on Facebook, you share it to your page. Expand that reach, and it still boils down to the best marketing is going to be word of mouth. um,
I like what you said about asking the chamber to promote the library's newsletter as well as, yeah, that's a good idea.
yeah, we're very fortunate. Our chamber here, every month, they always ask me in case I forget to send it to them, our monthly calendar of events. So they'll send that out of what's going on here at the library and then a link to our website. And that's just kind of a neat little relationship that they have. Um,
Very good. We're very nearly out of time. I don't know, Janae, if we can get to your question because it might take a bit longer than we have, but you might want to email this to Andrew. She's asking, or she's saying she would like to learn more about how to design and format emails and newsletters to be best received on phones. So, um, is that more than we have time for in 60 seconds?
Well, the quick answer is make use of any um, you know, pre-made designs that MailerLite or Constant Contact may have, because they're already doing that. They kind of know that. But then when you are designing on those, like I said, I always send one to myself and look at it on my phone and see how it looks. And if I like it, great. The other thing, like I mentioned earlier, is if you see emails that you really like, okay, can you maybe steal that design, or follow those elements that they're doing? Um, I subscribe to a good number of other libraries, newsletters that I'm never going to that library, but I like to see what they're doing. And they have uh, educated and paid marketing people to do that. So I'm always like, oh, that's what they're doing there. Okay, I like that. Um,
Very good. So many good ideas. I have to say, Andrew, was not familiar with Mailer Lite. Some of the others that you mentioned, Constant Contact and Library Aware, I know is one. About 100 years ago, I used to use MailChimp. Um, I don't know if that's still a thing, is it? Is that still out there?
yes.
But so many good ideas. So I thank you so very much for sharing all of your expertise in these kind of marketing efforts with us. Thanks to all of you for joining us for this last breakout session. I hope you and your trustees will be able to come back this evening for our evening presentation, especially designed for boards that starts at 6 o'clock. So thank you all so very much. Andrew, my thanks to you as well. Thanks, everybody.